the most terrifying home invasions ever recorded. But before you do, we have this week's top 10 for you, which is a little bit different. We decided to take a more somber look at the topic through the perspective of reality rather than emphasizing all the fictional home invasion thrillers that have inundated theaters over the years. That's right, everyone, since the first one was documented way back in 1911, there hasn't been a shortage of spooky real-life house invasions. View our list of the top 10 actual house invasions. Number 10. Murders in the Manson Family, 1969. The deadly home invasion carried out on that fateful August night in 1969 by psychotic cult leader Charles Manson is among the most notorious. Manson instructed his deluded followers to break into the house of pregnant actress Sharon Tate and execute the girl there and then. She was stabbed 16 times before having her neck rope strung and having the word pig daubed in blood on the front door. Leno and Rosemary LaBianca were also killed by stabbing the following night when the same Manson family broke into a Los Feliz home, riding helter-skelter in death to pigs and blood. Manson was eventually captured and imprisoned, and he is still detained today. Number 9. The Clutter Family Murder Attack, 1959. The Clutter Family Farmhouse Massacre was dramatized in the docu-fictional account of renowned novelist Truman Capote, which filmmaker Richard Brooks later adapted for the big screen as Iron Cold Blood. It still ranks as one of the most horrifyingly pointless of all crimes. This kind of thing wasn't supposed to occur in Kansas in 1959, where the weather was so idyllically American. The reason why? Perry Smith and Dick Hickok pulled off the inconceivable following a botched robbery attempt. They brutally ambushed a family of 4 with a shotgun: Father Herbert, Mother Bonnie, Kenyon, 15, and Nancy, 16, before being apprehended 6 weeks later and eventually being hanged. Number 8. Speck Slaughters, Richard Nurses, 1966. The horrifying Richard Speck case, in which an insane person broke into a Chicago nursing dormitory in the middle of the night and systematically murdered 8 female orderlies, was commemorated this past July on its 50th anniversary. The specifics are chilling. Armed with a knife and a revolver, Speck broke into the facility and started waking up each nurse individually before hog-tying, strangling, and stabbing them all to death. The girls also saw the girl in front of them being carefully removed and executed, so they were aware of their impending doom. Not alarmed enough? Before strangling Gloria Davy, Speck felt the urge to rape her. Amazingly, one nurse, Cora Amireo, managed to flee the deadly invasion by hiding under the bed. Number 7. The Murder of the Setagaya Family, 2000. The fact that the infamous Setagaya family murders are still unsolved after more than 15 years makes them even more horrible. On New Year's Eve of 2000, an unknown knife-wielding intruder broke into the Setagaya's second-floor window and entered Ray's bedroom, who was 6 years old at the time. He killed the boy by strangling him before turning on Nikio, the boy's father, and stabbing him numerous times until he too passed away. After killing mother Yasuko and her 8-year-old daughter Nina, the murderer went to the kitchen to get another knife. Even worse? Before finally taking off, the killer consumed some ice cream, took a poop, and used the family's internet. Number 6. Murders of South Pacific Railroad Axes, 1911. A mother and her 3 children were hacked to death by an axe-wielding lunatic in 1911, marking the first police-recorded house invasion. The murderer then carried out an incomprehensible series of brutal killings throughout the South Pacific Railroad's route, which ran from Rayne, Louisiana, to San Antonio, Texas. 6 residences were broken into between January 1911 and April 1912, and as a result, 49 family members were axe-blade hacked to death. The fact that every family targeted was mixed race was a similarity that was even more concerning than the murder weapon. Surprisingly, despite the killings continuing during those 14 months and numerous false arrests, no one was ever found to be responsible. Number 5. Slayings at Orchard Park Apartments, 1979. The beheaded body of 33-year-old Alice Elaine Rankin was found on July 27, 1979, in her Orchard Park apartment outside of Houston, Texas. When Rankin's front door was found ajar, a coworker entered and saw the poor girl's legs bound, having been sexually raped. and leaving a trail of heavy blood that appeared to lead to where her head had been severed. But her head was never discovered. Even more concerning is the fact that, on August 10th, less than 2 weeks later, another home invasion occurred at the same complex, this time 2 floors higher. In addition, Mary Michael Calcutta was attacked, assaulted, raped, and fatally stabbed numerous times. No killer was ever discovered, although 2 nearby, identical murders that occurred on the same day as Calcutta and in October of the following year were linked to the same attacker. Number 4. The Cheshire Murders, 2007. Anyone who watched the 2013 HBO film The Cheshire Murders on the subject will be familiar with what happened one terrible summer night in Connecticut in 2007. After stalking Jennifer Hawk Petit and her 11-year-old daughter Michaela at a grocery shop, a couple of 6 psychotic wackos decided to follow the girls home and break in later that night. The males attacked the mother first, strangled her, tied her up, and left her in the basement. They then started to douse the house in gasoline, rape the 11-year-old daughter in her bed, kill the mother, and burn the house on fire before trying to flee. The 2 men were ultimately captured, and the father was able to escape. The neighbors claimed that if the police had arrived faster, possibly more lives could have been saved. Number 3. The Bennett Family Home Invasion, 1984. There is no more terrifying period for a home invasion than the 6 hours on January 16, 1984, in Colorado. After spotting an intruder in the middle of the night, 27-year-old Bruce Bennett engaged the intruder in a struggle only to be fatally struck with a blunt object, possibly a hammer, and have his throat cut. The murderer then went into the room of Deborah, a 26-year-old mother, and sexually raped her and Melissa, her 7-year-old daughter, before killing them both with blunt force trauma. The murderer then turned on 3-year-old Vanessa, severely beating her in the face till she died. Surprisingly, the toddler made it through the trauma. Even worse, it's possible that the same hammer-wielding suspect attacked 4 additional people earlier this month, one of whom, Patricia Louise, succumbed to her injuries. Number 2. The Hinterkaifeck Mattock Massacre, 1922. All 6 members of the Hinterkaifeck family, Father Andreas Gruber, his wife, their 3 children, Kazilia, Joseph, and Victoria, as well as their maid, were brutally murdered with a mattock in a cold German farmhouse in late March 1922. 94 years later, no one has been taken into custody. This situation is even more unsettling because the Gruber family is said to have disregarded the pre-invasion evidence. Footprints in the snow heading inside the house were ignored, but not those leading outside. A set of house keys that had gone lost just a few days previously was also found. The killer, according to authorities, scouted the house, hid in the attic, and enticed the family members one at a time into the barn, where he then hacked them up with a digging instrument. The murderer reportedly remained in the residence for several days afterward, feeding the cattle and heating the fireplace. Icy-blooded. Number 1. The Paul Family Mystery, 1958. About 60 years after the crime, the first triple homicide in Vancouver's history is still unsolved. It also fits into the category of home invasions. On June 10, 1958, a crazed intruder broke into the home of the Paul family and murdered David Paul, the patriarch, by beating and killing him in the basement. Then Dorothy, David's 11-year-old daughter, was picked out and murdered in her bed. The murderer then waited a long time for his wife Helen to get home from work before he was finally happy. When she did, he shot her in the face and began to wreak havoc on her lifeless body. Not only that, but a bloody handprint was also left on the wall of Dorothy's bedroom, but it was impossible to identify the person who left it either now or then. What do you think about this video? Do let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.